Okay, we're going to take a quick pause to go over some secondary dominants, and I've done these before in a different thing, like chromatic harmony, but they are actually part of sequence chains and harmonic sequences, and I want to show you a few tricks that I've learned over the years to deal with stuff like the diminished chord while dealing with a chain, stuff like that. Since it can't be tonicized with a secondary dominant, there's little tricks you can use, and I'll show you, and little workarounds too. Certain sequences will not work in certain inversions, so we're going to use just C major and C minor, okay? And we're going to try to create little secondary dominant sequences. These are very typical, but we're going to just little tricks. The diminished chord, okay, it can't be tonicized with a secondary dominant. You hear what happens? It sounds really strange. Well, it doesn't sound strange. It just doesn't sound like a secondary dominant. So we're going to do this kind of movement, and I'll show you how. With the diminished chord, just use the natural order of the circle of fifths: C, F, B. Okay. So if we do that within this chain, we can do this. C, like that, okay? But inversion, now we can do our secondary dominant chain like we wanted to. So C, F, first inversion, like that. So now we can do that root movement like we saw before. So C, F, 5 of 4, or 6, I'm sorry, 5 of 5, 5 of 4, 5 of 3, 5 of 2, 5, 1. So now we can include that diminished chord and have a full sequence. So, okay, so see, by including that diminished chord in there, we get something that's a little more complete like that. Okay, and we get the full chromatic scale as well. So we're going to try to replicate that in minor, but the problem is well, we're going to use a raised third 5 too at the one, but the problem is the two chords diminished. In this case, the order is different. So we're going to have to figure out how to get away from it. We're probably going to have to do movement like this, and I'll show you how to get away from the 2 chord and still include it. We'll use the natural order again. A, some form of A, some form of D. Okay, that will naturally go to that chord. It's a diminished fifth, but it still works. So 1, 5 of 7. We're using natural minor. 5 of 6. 5 of 4. 5 of 3. And here's the part. 6 major 7th. 2, 5, 1. Okay, so it helps us to keep that chain. You notice it's a little different than the major version, and minor's a little harder to deal with when it comes to secondary dominant chains. So, but we're trying to. And since the chord order in minor is different, you could just approximate what you did in major. So let's scrap the diminished chord right now and do something very common like this. This is just this is one of the most common ways to do this, is just 1, 5 of 6, 5 of 5, 5 of 4, 5 of 3, 5 of 2, 5 of 1, with the third and the inversions of the secondary dominant. That's super common. So let's do something let's do it like this. Same sequence, but the sevenths in the base of the secondary dominants. Okay, so it's just another way to do it that's a little bit less common. Okay, and I added just a way to end it. So We try to replicate this in minor. Unfortunately, we have to use the 7th chord because the diminished chord's in a different spot. So we're using the secondary dominants are using the 7th in the bass. So 5 of 4, 5 of 3. Now here we have the problem with the diminished chord. So just use the natural order again. Okay, the diminished chord is included this time because the chord order is different. So we get the chord order is different, so you have to include the diminished chord there, or else the sequence is unfinished. So let's go back to C major again. Now, sometimes we'll run into a situation where a certain secondary dominant won't work, like on the 5 of 3. Okay, since two of the tones are sometimes the only 2 tones in the well, watch what happens when we try to use it with specific inversions. We'll do a 1, and then we'll use the diminished trick. F major 7th. B half diminished. Now the secondary dominant, 5 of 6, 5 of 5, 5 of 4. Now here we can't continue this same type of movement because that area there. So maybe we want to just break out of it at this point instead. Do something like that. Okay, so there's certain situations where it's going to be problematic and inversions, certain inversions. So let's play it a little speedier. By the way, it's a half diminished to 1 with the 5th in the bass, then the 5. So that's very common in place of secondary dominance, just like the fully diminished is. Let's use minor again. So we're gonna try to replicate that and see where the problem is. Okay, 5 of 6. Okay, right here we have to do something like this, 5 of 4. Okay, now we could continue on that. Now the trick again, we have to use the diminished chord. So just remember the 6th chord can always go to the 2 chord when you want to continue a chain without breaking it up. Here it is, up to speed. I just found a way to finish it. So, okay, so let me go through that again slow. 5 of 7, 5 of 6, 5 of 4, 5 of 3, 5 of, or no, actually 6 to 2, and then 5, 1. So we're trying to maintain a similar kind of sequence as the major. So if you ever get stuck on making a secondary dominant chain, just use the natural order to get to the use the diminished chords, so you can maintain an even kind of chain sequence. And in the case of minor, the 6th chord to the 2 chord, it will work. Okay, so it might be, you might find yourself having to use that in certain situations, and sometimes you could skip over it. So truthfully, secondary dominants and harmonic sequences like this are super rare in our modern times. And by natural order, I mean counterclockwise in the circle of 5th root movement. That's what I meant by that. I'm sorry, I didn't say that before. So an F would go to a B, okay, and an A flat would go to a D in minor. So sometimes you just have to make, as we saw, sacrifices depending on whether it's major or minor in your secondary dominant chain. You have to, either include or not include the diminished chord to make something complete, or to make something not sound strange. Okay, so all right, enjoy.